Hey, what's up guys? John here. On this channel I talk about personal finance, real estate, business, and money. And it's so hard to ignore what the smartest people in the world, the most powerful, politically connected people in the world, where they're investing, and what some of the strongest countries in the world are doing with the dollar. Right now they're de-dollarizing. They're getting out of dollars, and some of the biggest corporations and most powerful people are investing outside of America and really kind of taking some risk off the table here. And we have to ask ourselves, why would they do something like this? Then we have to go back a couple years and pay attention to what they were telling us before the madness over the last 2 years. All this insanity. Well, in 2019, CNBC says a growing club of very powerful countries is steering away from using the dollar. The US dollar has been the world's major reserve currency for decades, but that status could come under threat as very powerful countries seek to undermine its importance, right? Okay, now what we're seeing, especially over the last couple of years, the PPP loans, the unemployment benefits, the stimulus checks, all of these subsidies and welfare programs that have been created to support this economy, all of the subsidies that have been created. Now they're going to continue this for many, many more years. $1,250 stimulus checks likely coming soon for millions. Last year, the child tax credit was expanded, which meant that eligible families wound up receiving checks of up to $300 every month. However, it was not extended until 2022. So many people, struggling families, financially haven't received a check since December. That might soon change, though, as new legislator is being worked on. Republican Mitt Romney of Utah introduced the Family Security Act, which is very similar to the child tax credit, except proposes more money is sent out. It will see families receive $350 a month for each child that they have under the age of 5, $250 for each kid under the age of 17, and the max allowed is $1,250 per family. That benefit will go into full effect for every family with single tax filer paying up to $200,000 a year. Think about how much money that is. $200,000 a year. That's a doctor's salary, an attorney's salary, an engineer's salary. Any strong job where you go to school for 4 years or 8 years, generally you're going to make between $100,000 and $200,000 in most cases, and that's encompassing them. So what this is going to look like is that if you're with a joint filer, $400,000. That is a ton of money. With $400,000 a year, you could go live in $1 million house. You can travel to exotic locations once or twice a year. You can save money. You can live a decent life, a very decent life for $400,000 a year, that's for sure. And yet they still will qualify underneath this new type of, more like a welfare program. It will go into effect these earnings more as well, but will be reduced by $50 for every $1,000 above the threshold that a family makes. Unlike child tax credits, there's a catch to the proposal. The beneficiaries must work, volunteer, or train for at least 80 hours a month. So you have to agree to working for the state. And if you work for the state, then you'll receive these benefits. It's pretty crazy to me of how this relationship that we've had with Big Brother has transformed over the last couple years. We as a society went from being totally independent, making our own moves, our own calls, doing everything by ourselves for the most part, to this new way, which is universal basic income in 23 cities, printing so much money, interest rates at basically zero, painting this artificial economy. And then as we start to really lift up the pain with the interest rates, they're going to start bringing in all these new solutions. And as they continue doing that, more and more people are going to be demanding of these solutions. And this breakdown, Biden is proposing this $5.8 trillion plan for 2023. But one of the most terrifying aspects of this plan is this clause right here, that they're looking ahead for the next pandemic. They're looking ahead for it. It says what Biden's requesting. He's saying $127 billion, right? And then assume that sum includes major increases for pandemic preparedness and public health. And Biden is requesting $81.7 billion over 5 years to bolster pandemic preparedness and biodefense, $28 billion for and prevention to overhaul its health data, $9.9 billion towards boosting state and local health departments' capacity. There would be $12.1 billion for National Institutes of Health to research and develop. So this is nowhere near over. People think that, this is over and we're basically on our way out of this. We're stepping into the problem. And our only option, our only solution as we step more into this is going to be to print more and more and more money. Now, if you were an outside country and you're looking at America, America's reserve currency generally is built off of oil reserves and our access to oil and gold. We're no longer on the gold standard as of 1972, and we're shutting down our capacity to be self-sufficient with oil. So as this happens, we become less and less valuable. And we look at Saudi Arabia and India and China and Russia and all these ties and connections that are being built. What's ultimately going to happen is that the more and more we push these sanctions, the more and more we push these problems, the more they're going to look at America as a country that's not as powerful as it once was. And so these figures here come up to about $131.7 billion, an eighth of $1 trillion. To put that into context, our national debt's about $30 trillion. So this is a massive investment. They're essentially telling us that something could be coming in the near future and we need to be prepared for it. And if that does happen, that is going to be pretty terrifying, especially for the middle class, that they're barely making it right now with the inflationary worries and everything that's happening in this economy. And they're also preparing for a $2 trillion renegotiation of Build Back Better. $2 trillion. And the yuan, they just cut, for the first time ever, cut the dollar holdings in biggest currency reshuffle in a decade. This came out today. Israel's central bank will add Chinese yuan while slashing its dollar and euro holdings in a move to diversify its reserve allocations and lengthen its investment horizon. We need to look and need to earn a return on the reserves that will cover the cost of the liability. What impact will this have on the dollar? Billionaire hedge fund Ray Dalio, he's founder of Bridgewater Associates, 2013 was the largest hedge fund in the world, and he called the financial crisis. He now believes the Fed's unprecedented QE, quantitative easing, is eroding the central bank's credibility and could even threaten the dollar's privileged position of world's reserve currency. And the US dollar may be the next casualty of the Ukraine war. This lady from the IMF, she said just last month the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, first deputy managing director, Gita, warned that the Western sanctions could undermine the global dominance of the US dollar, while the dollar's global reserve currency status, an important element of the US global primacy, will remain the medium term. The median term. She told the Financial Times, fragmentation at a smaller level is certainly quite possible, which will translate into low-moving trends towards other currencies playing a bigger role as reserve assets. This is going to happen. There's no doubt about it. Blackstone, they're sitting on $881 billion in assets under management, and they're aggressively moving into Asia. Part of the strategy is a growing focus on Asia. The firm's recently raised $6.4 billion for a new fund targeting a range of markets in the region, nearly triple the size of its first Asia fund that focuses primarily on India. The new fund co-invests with the global fund, so it's nearly $11 billion in buying power. Jonathan Gray said, this is a reflection of our long-term commitment to Asia, the fact that we think the region will continue to grow and be a bigger part of the global economy. And Blackrock, they're planning their first ETF product this year. But what I find very fascinating now is this relationship with Jared Kushner in Saudi Arabia and other countries. His new fund, Affinity Partners, he just received a $2 billion investment. And how this plays out, it's very fascinating to me, because what they're investing in is they're now considering to open an office in Israel, but what they're investing in is they're investing in technology, cyber, fintech, healthcare, clean energy, artificial intelligence companies, but they're also helping companies in America expand into other countries. So basically take money out of America and move it into countries that I believe he thinks are going to do much better over the foreseeable future. Now you have to ask yourself, Jared Kushner worked beside Donald Trump, probably has a lot better information than we do. And during this beginning of this whole chaos, I'm sure that they had some really, really powerful conversations in a private room about what the future looks like. And they hopped on some calls, some very important calls. They made some commitments, and that seems very likely to me. that they know what's going on. They're not just winging this kind of like the rest of Americans, where they're just kind of, playing it day by day. They know what the next couple of years are likely going to look like, the next 5 years, 10 years. And that's why they're building out these opportunities overseas. That's my real belief. I think BlackRock, Blackstone, Affinity Partners, Jared Kushner, all of these big players are taking capital and taking risk off the table in America, and they're moving that money because the dollar is going to be worth less and less and less. And if other countries are going to only do better and better and better, you're going to have an immediate return on cash if you invest in the right places, in the right industries, as America starts to really slip. I think we're stepping into a situation over the next 5 years where the US dollar is going to be in some big trouble. Maybe less, maybe less. Everything Biden's talking about doing right now, that's happening around the corner. He wants to start implementing this stuff now, and it's not the end. That figure, $131 billion, he says these sweeping figures do not include the immediate purchasing needs, right? The immediate purchasing needs, the administration has warned that it'll be running out of these treatments in May without the relief funds. What we need to continue to finish the job, we need immediately. What we're asking for in this budget for long-term preparedness is very separate. So it's just going to be so much money, so much capital allocated into this. You have to ask yourself why. What is this new world going to really look like when you're spending that type of money? It's not going to go unnoticed. It's not going to go unnoticed in our lifestyle. We're going to see everything change in America. I think we're really, really staring into the abyss on the dollar. But I'm curious, what do you think? Do you think that the dollar is going to hold its value? Or do you think printing and putting so much capital into this economy is going to go unfazed? Drop your comments below. I'm really curious as to what you think about all this. A lot of people are moving to precious metals, gold, silver, even artwork, raw land. People are investing in other countries. They're moving capital. They're planning ahead. And they're getting concerned about the dollar. Are you? Drop it below. Subscribe here. Hit that like button. When you hit the like button, YouTube's going to share this content to educate more people about what's really going on. And I'll catch you guys in the next video.